As I pushed through the dense foliage of the jungle, the sounds of civilization grew fainter, replaced by the cacophony of insects and the rustling of leaves. I had been warned not to venture into this part of the jungle, but I had never been one to heed warnings. My curiosity had always gotten the better of me. And as a journalist, I had learned to rely on my instincts. I had been searching for the ancient temple for days. And finally, I stumbled upon it. The entrance was hidden behind a waterfall, and I had to navigate through the icy waters to reach it. As I stepped into the temple, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The air was thick with the scent of incense and something else. Something sweet and decaying. I had always been skeptical of the supernatural, but there was something about this place that made me feel like I was being watched. I began to explore the temple, my footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The carvings on the walls depicted a civilization that was far more advanced than I had ever imagined. I was so engrossed in my exploration that I didn't notice the doors closing behind me. It wasn't until I heard the sound of the doors slamming shut that I realized I was trapped. I tried to open them, but they wouldn't budge. I was starting to panic, my heart racing with every passing second. I had to find a way out. But as I looked around, I realized that I was completely alone. There were no windows, no other doors, just the stone walls that seemed to be closing in on me. I was starting to feel like I was going to suffocate. As the days passed, I grew weaker and weaker. I had no food, no water, and no way of communicating with the outside world. I was starting to lose hope, wondering if anyone would ever find me. But I refused to give up. I had always been a fighter, and I was determined to survive. I started to ration my energy, conserving my strength for the moment when I would need it most. I knew that I couldn't stay here forever, but I also knew that I couldn't escape without a plan. It was then that I saw him. He was a local, dressed in traditional clothing, and he seemed to appear out of nowhere. He spoke to me in a language I didn't understand, but his eyes were kind, and I knew that he was trying to help me. He brought me food and water, and he showed me a way out of the temple. But as we were about to leave, he stopped and looked at me with a serious expression. He told me that the only way to escape was to make a sacrifice, to give up something that was precious to me. I was taken aback. I had never been one to believe in superstitions, but there was something about this place that made me feel like I had no choice. I thought about all the things that I had, all the things that I had worked for, and I knew that I couldn't give up any of them. But then I thought about my life, about the person I had become. I was a cynical journalist, always looking for the next big story, always chasing the truth. But in that moment, I realized that there was more to life than just the truth. There was love, compassion, and kindness. I made the sacrifice, giving up my camera, the one thing that had defined me for so long. It was a hard decision, but it was also liberating. As I walked out of the temple with the local, I felt a sense of freedom that I had never felt before. I knew that I would never be the same again, that I had been changed by my experience in the temple. I looked back at the temple, and I knew that I would never forget the lessons I had learned there. I had learned to appreciate the beauty of life, to see the world in a different light. As we emerged from the jungle, I saw the world with new eyes. The sunlight was brighter, the air was fresher, and the sounds of civilization were music to my ears. I knew that I would never go back to the way I was before, that I had been given a second chance. I turned to the local and smiled, grateful for his help. He smiled back, and I knew that I would never forget him. I walked away from the jungle, away from the temple, and away from the person I used to be. I was ready to start a new chapter in my life, one that would be filled with love, compassion, and kindness.